Hello and welcome to the Watches TV. Let's continue our saga about calendars with the annual calendar. The annual calendar has the ability to take into account that months count 30 or 31 months. It must be set only once a year in February, not only because it is the shortest month in the year, but also because it can have 28 or 29 days.
Annual calendars are more refined than simple calendars, but not as complex as the perpetual style of calendar. Some watch professionals have told us they became so successful these last few years because perpetual calendars are particularly demanding and delicate to set and adjust. Thus, the annual calendar is a much more acceptable alternative that still boasts interesting features, technically speaking. In addition, it is simpler and less expensive to build and assemble. All these points explain why annual calendars are also priced slightly higher than simple calendars but are still not as expensive as perpetual calendars. In fact, they fill a gap between the two. Historically speaking, the first annual calendars in wristwatches appeared during the 1980s, but they really became known when Patek Philippe introduced one of its own in 1996. Ever since, the annual calendar has become a very appreciated and typical complication from this Genevan manufacturer. For close to a decade, Patek Philippe had the sort of exclusivity on this function, but since 2006, the annual calendar has been adopted by dozens of brands.
Taking into account its relative complexity, usability and reliability, the annual calendar seems to have had a strong influence on modern calendars.
An annual calendar complication can comprise anything from just a few added components to more than 150. The Patek Philippe annual calendar counts an additional 154 parts, for example. As the general rule in watchmaking is to simplify mechanism as much as possible to gain time, money and reliability, a type of competition emerged to create the simplest annual calendar. One major inventor of this complication is Ludwig Oechslin, former director of the International Watchmaking Museum in La Chaux-de-Fonds. Oechslin is not only a brilliant thinker, but also a practical man deeply involved in simplifying the mechanism he has worked on. He invented an annual calendar mechanism boasting only 4 dedicated wheels that is now used in his brand Ox & Junior. Rolex also developed a system called Saros, which also only adds 4 moving parts to the movement to achieve this.
So, if you have to remember one thing about the annual calendar, it should be that it is a smart, modern and practical complication that you have only to set once in a year. This said, let's see us for the next episode dedicated to the perpetual and secular calendar. Bye!